There are 4 words on every screen at this World Cup. Football unites the world. Miami International Airport. June 6, 2026. A man sits in a holding cell. He has been there for 11 hours. His name is Omar Artan. Before we get to the airport, you need to understand who they stopped. Mogadishu is the capital of Somalia. The militant group Al-Shabaab has been bombing it for over a decade. IED attacks, suicide bombers, hundreds of civilian deaths every year. Omar refereed there for 8 years. He never missed a match. 2 weeks ago, he refereed the biggest club match on the African continent. Last year, the Confederation of African Football, CAF, named him the best referee in Africa. 2 months ago, FIFA put his name on a list. 52 referees, 104 games, the biggest World Cup in history. His name was on that list. He had a valid visa, he had his FIFA credentials, he had photographs from his career. Border officials looked at all of it. Then they asked him about Al-Shabaab for 11 hours. United States Customs and Border Protection, CBP, issued a statement. They called him the Traveler. No name, no reason, no appeal. Case closed. FIFA responded in 4 sentences. The last one was this: a host government ultimately determines who receives a visa and who is admitted into their country. The man from Mogadishu. Omar Abdulkadir Artan was born in 1992 in Mogadishu, into the first year of a civil war that would not end in his lifetime. In the first 4 months of fighting, an estimated 25,000 people were killed in Mogadishu alone. 1.5 million fled the country. The National Stadium, Mogadishu's only major football ground, was seized during the Civil War and turned into a military base. It would not host a football match for 30 years. Somalia has never qualified for a World Cup. For years after the Civil War began, FIFA-sanctioned matches could not even be played inside the country. This is where Omar Artan decided he wanted to referee. Not because the conditions were right, because he showed up anyway. He started in Somalia's local leagues. No cameras, no recognition outside the city. No path that anyone from his country had walked before him. At times, he had to change his route to the stadium because of explosions in the streets. He changed his route. He showed up. In 2018, FIFA placed his name on their international referees list. He was the first Somali referee they had ever listed. He kept climbing. In January 2024, he was selected for the Africa Cup of Nations, AFCON, Africa's premier international football tournament, 24 nations, held every 2 years. He became the first Somali referee in AFCON history, taking charge of the Group E clash between Tunisia and Namibia. Tunisia were former champions of Africa. Namibia were ranked 115th in the world, 87 places below Tunisia, and had never won a single match at the tournament in their entire history. Namibia won 1-0, their first ever AFCON victory. One of the biggest upsets in the tournament's recent history. Omar Artan refereed every minute of it. No controversy, no complaints. Clean. 1 week later, he was back on the pitch. This time, Algeria versus Mauritania. Algeria were 2-time champions of Africa. Mauritania had never won a single match at the tournament finals in their entire history. Mauritania beat Algeria 1-0 and knocked the 2-time champions out of the competition. 2 matches. 2 of the biggest upsets of the tournament, both refereed by a man from Mogadishu. No controversy, no complaints. Clean. On May 24, 2026, he stood in the center circle in Rabat for the second leg of the Confederation of African Football, CAF Champions League final, as far of Morocco versus Mamelodi Sundowns of South Africa. 60,000 people in the stands, the biggest club match on the African continent. The first Somali referee ever to take charge of it. Later that year, CAF named him the best male referee in Africa. Then came April 9, 2026. FIFA announced the 52 referees for the 2026 World Cup, the biggest tournament in the history of the sport. 48 nations, 104 games. Hosted across the United States, Canada, and Mexico. His name was on that list. Before leaving Mogadishu, he gave an interview to BBC Somali. He said, "Every referee's ambition is to go to the World Cup. When you are selected, you feel that all your hard work was worth it. It was a moment where everything came into focus." Think about what that sentence cost him to earn. a city whose stadium spent 30 years as a military base, a country that has never qualified for a World Cup, a route to the stadium that sometimes ran through explosions, 8 years of climbing through all of it, and now the biggest stage in world football. The Somalia embassy in Kenya arranged a diplomatic passport specifically to ease his travel. His visa was confirmed and in order. He had told Al Jazeera earlier that year that a referee cannot give up, that you have to have a target. He had his target. The door. June 6, 2026. Miami International Airport, 6 o'clock in the morning. Here is something you need to understand about this moment. Somalia is on the United States travel ban, not a visa warning, not an advisory, a ban. Signed by President Donald Trump on June 4, 2025. In effect from June 9, 2025. Expanded December 16, 2025. 39 countries by January 1, 2026. Somalia, full ban. Now here is where it gets complicated. The ban has exemptions. The White House built them in specifically for this tournament. Athletes, coaches, staff, officials, anyone directly participating in the 2026 FIFA World Cup, exempted. On paper, Omar Artan was not an athlete. He was not a coach. He was a match official, one of 52 referees FIFA had selected for the tournament. Appointed, vetted, credentialed, his name printed on an official FIFA document. He had a valid visa. He had a diplomatic passport, arranged specifically by the Somalia embassy in Kenya to make this trip easier. He had photographs of his entire career. He had everything. The plane landed. He walked off the aircraft. He joined the line at immigration, and then he did not come out the other side. What happened in the next 11 hours was described by border officials as a routine inspection. Routine. They took him into a room. They asked him about his travel plans. They asked him about Somali politics. They asked him about Al-Shabaab, the militant group that had been bombing Mogadishu for over a decade. The same city where he had spent 8 years refereeing. The same explosions he had rerouted around on the way to local league matches. Now he was sitting across a table from federal agents, being asked to account for them. He laid out exactly who he was. He showed them the FIFA documentation. He showed them the photographs. He showed them 8 years of a career built from Mogadishu's local leagues to the biggest club final on the African continent. They went through all of it. Then they put him in a holding cell. 11 hours after he landed, Omar Artan was placed on a flight back to Istanbul. He never set foot outside the airport. He never saw a stadium. He never blew a whistle. Now here is what makes this story unlike anything else. The travel ban had an exemption for World Cup officials. It said so explicitly. Omar Artan was a World Cup official. The exemption did not save him. United States Customs and Border Protection, CBP, issued a statement the following Monday. They did not use his name. They called him the Traveler. The Traveler, a referee for the FIFA World Cup, was determined to be inadmissible due to vetting concerns and was denied entry. Vetting concerns? That was the entire explanation. No detail, no reason, no process by which it could be challenged. FIFA issued 4 sentences. The organization that put his name on the list. The organization whose logo was on every credential in his folder. 4 sentences and a shrug. The White House Task Force on the FIFA World Cup is led by Andrew Giuliani, son of former New York City Mayor Rudy Giuliani, appointed personally by President Trump in May 2025. On Tuesday, June 9, 2026, 3 days after the airport, Giuliani stood at a podium at the Atlantic Council in Washington. He was asked directly about Omar Artan. He said this: "While I can't go into the details, what I can tell you, high level, is it was for a very good reason. A very good reason. No detail given, no reason named, no appeal offered. The 2026 World Cup begins June 11th. 104 games, 48 nations, the biggest tournament in the history of the sport. Omar Artan is in Istanbul." The others. Omar Artan landed in Miami on June 6th. He was not the first. The day before, June 5th, the Iraqi national football team touched down at Chicago O'Hare International Airport. Iraq had not been at a World Cup in 40 years. 40 years. The last time Iraq played in a World Cup was 1986. An entire generation of Iraqis had grown up without seeing their national team on that stage. They were back. Their star striker, Ayman Hussein, was the reason. On March 31st, 2026, in a playoff final in Monterrey, Mexico, Hussein scored the goal that sent Iraq to the World Cup. The decisive goal, the one that ended 40 years of waiting. Then he landed at O'Hare. Customs and Border Protection, CBP, separated him from the rest of the squad the moment he came through arrivals. They took his mobile phone. They reviewed its contents. They questioned him for 7 hours. 7 hours. The man who scored the goal that qualified Iraq for their first World Cup in 4 decades questioned for 7 hours at an American airport before the tournament began. He was eventually allowed in. The team photographer, Talal Salah, was not. Salah had been pulled aside alongside Hussein. CBP went through his devices. They went through his documents. Then they issued a statement. The second traveler, a photographer and not a player on the team, was determined to be inadmissible and was denied entry due to vetting concerns. Vetting concerns, the same 2 words. Talal Salah was sent back to Iraq. The official photographer of the Iraqi national team, at their first World Cup in 40 years, was not there to photograph it. Now go further. Iran has been at war with the United States since February 2026. Not a trade war, not a diplomatic dispute, a military conflict, active, ongoing, in the Middle East. And Iran qualified for the 2026 World Cup, which means Iran, a country at active war with one of the 3 host nations, was scheduled to play 3 group stage matches on American soil. What happened next reads like something invented. It was not invented. Iran's original training base was in Tucson, Arizona. The Trump administration made clear it was not welcome there. Iran moved its entire base of operations to Tijuana, Mexico, across the border from San Diego. The head of Iran's Football Federation, Mehdi Taj, a sitting vice president of the Asian Football Confederation and a member of multiple FIFA committees, was denied a United States visa. 15 members of Iran's administrative and management staff were denied visas. Iran's players, the ones actually playing in the tournament, received their visas just 10 days before their first match. 10 days. On June 9, 2026, Iran's Football Federation announced that the United States had revoked Iran's entire ticket allocation for their 3 group stage matches. The fans who had already purchased tickets. Gone. Iran called it an act of obstruction. FIFA said it was working on the situation. The matches are still scheduled. And then there are the fans. Not the players, not the officials, not the photographers. The fans. A Moroccan Supporters Association, a group that had traveled together to Russia in 2018, to Qatar in 2022, to the Paris Olympics in 2024, applied for United States visas to attend this World Cup. 40 of their 42 members were denied. No explanation given. They had match tickets already purchased, hotel rooms already booked. Some had spent the equivalent of thousands of dollars in preparation. 40 of 42. Denied. A professor who studies sports and politics told NPR that what was unfolding was a self-inflicted wound. A scholar from the Council on Foreign Relations wrote that many African fans who already held valid United States visas, were choosing not to come anyway. Not because they were banned, because they did not want to arrive at an airport and spend hours explaining themselves to a federal agent. This is the tournament FIFA President Gianni Infantino promised would be the greatest in history, the biggest, the most inclusive, the most united. The FIFA campaign slogan, printed on every sleeve, displayed on every screen, is 4 words. Football unites the world. A referee is in Istanbul, a photographer is in Baghdad. 15 Iranian officials never made it to the country. 40 Moroccan fans are at home with tickets they cannot use. The prize. 6 months before Omar Artan landed in Miami, FIFA invented an award. The FIFA Peace Prize never existed before, never been given to anyone before. It was so hastily arranged, it surprised several of FIFA's own senior officials, board members and vice presidents who learned about it through the news. FIFA President Gianni Infantino gave it to Donald Trump at his own World Cup draw, inside a building he controls. The sequence. December 5, 2025, FIFA hands Trump a peace prize with Football Unites the World on the trophy. June 6, 2026, Trump's government puts FIFA's own appointed referee in a holding cell. June 8, 2026, FIFA issues 4 sentences. No threat to move the tournament. No mention of Omar Artan. No mention of the Iraqi photographer. No mention of the 15 Iranian officials. No mention of the 40 Moroccan fans. What FIFA did was keep running Football Unites the World on every screen at every venue, on every sleeve, at every stadium. FIFA invented a peace prize, gave it to the man whose government would turn their own officials away at the border, stood on stage and pledged their support, then watched and said nothing. When Infantino put Football Unites the World on that trophy, on every sleeve, on every screen, did they know what they were building? Or did they simply not care who got left outside? Football Unites the World.